Hey guys, be sure to visit www.saraacarter.com. That's where you're going to get the latest stories and you're going to get the links to all of my social media as well as this podcast, which I love so much because I'm able to interview so many different people. I hear from you. I'm reading your reviews. You love the show. I want to bring you more and more people. And I want to thank all of my sponsors too out there for being so great on this podcast. Today, I'm going to be joined by Congressman Mike Garcia. He has been, I think, one of the most vocal and essential voices of what has happened in Afghanistan. And, you know, on the 15th, it was the 1-year anniversary. I hate even using that word anniversary because it sounds celebratory, but it was the 1-year debacle of the Biden administration's withdrawal from that region of our U.S. forces in such a way, a withdrawal that literally ended up in the deaths of American troops on the ground, left our allies abandoned, and really set the world on a trajectory that none of us expected to happen so quickly. We saw the rise of Russia moving into Ukraine, of course, and we see what's happening with China. And I believe a lot of that is based on the weakness that was witnessed during his administration's very much failed withdrawal from Afghanistan. And it was a really hard time for me and my family. And we have friends there and people that we love that fought side by side, worked with me, fought side by side with my husband, and people that were true allies of the United States. And I'll get into that with Congressman Garcia. And we'll talk about what's happening now, right? What is going on now? Are there still American families there? What can we do to get them out? What can we do to help families in need here? Because it's vitally important. This is not a war that will end quickly. It is still ongoing. We still have a threat, an underlying threat of terror targeting our nation. Believe me, I know you don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it, but it's there and it's real. And we need to be aware of that. We really, really do. Please follow, subscribe, get all the links at saraacarter.com. Don't forget to get them at saraacarter.com. And I'm telling you, you can download the podcast there. You can sign up on our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Well, one of the sponsors that I love so much is AMAC. It's the Association of Mature American Citizens. They are a phenomenal sponsor of our show. We love them. Why? Because they fight for the same values that we believe in, the values that make us American, right? The values that people from all over the world aspire to have. And when they don't, they flee their nations and they come here to be a part of this great nation. By joining AMAC, you are taking the very first steps to saving the America that you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other group offers. But guess what? It doesn't have a liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but guess what? The cause is even greater. That's amac.us/Carter. So we've got big news. And the news is that, once again, as the left, the radical left and the establishment, by the way, bye-bye Liz Cheney, Wyoming voted you out. I was cracking up. I tweeted it out. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you should, at Sarah Carter DC. But I tweeted out the other day, this headline from the Washington Post that is so ridiculous. But it was basically Liz Cheney voted, is gone, but she vows to continue to fight Trump. Do it all you want. Fight Trump all you want. This is America. It's a free country. But guess what? You can keep screaming about these lies that are being thrust upon President Trump and all of his friends, and you keep wanting to believe that is true. I mean, this is like people that keep hitting their heads against a wall. It's like insanity because they hate President Trump so much. They got Trump derangement syndrome. You can keep doing that, Liz Cheney. Yes, you can. But the voters voted, and they voted you out. They voted you out because you really do not represent the majority of the Republican Party. And I'm not saying that she is not and has not done good things. I don't want to be insulting here. But what I'm saying is that there is this political divide, even within the GOP, that is damaging our nation. That we can't even get together on one simple, fundamental fact. That is truth. You know, it is very, very true that, and I want to say it this way, that we have been through a lot. That is a fact. We've been through a lot over the last 6 years, right? As Americans and as a nation, we've watched as the radical left made up all these lies. But I did think at some point that the establishment, particularly people like Liz Cheney, the Bushes, and others, would come to their common sense when they saw the facts. But they didn't, because it's all about them. It's all about them retaining their own power. They don't want President Trump. Let's not even talk about President Trump. They don't want the deplorables really knowing that they're in charge. They want you to think that you're in charge. They want you to think that, but they really want to be the ones in charge. That's why they hated Trump, because Trump is continuing to expose all of their lies. That's what's going on here. That's why you see them just screaming mad, screaming like throwing tantrums, like children losing their minds in a grocery store over a toy. They just cannot believe that the American people are firing them. And the American people will continue to fire them up until midterms. Now let's talk about that, because that is what is so important here. I'm going to read to you this is from my website, SaraCarter.com, and this is at least 14 whistleblowers come forward over FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago. At least 14 whistleblowers. My old partner in crime, John Solomon, also wrote about this in Just the News, and he had some extra whistleblowers that came forward beyond those that were working with our lawmakers. So let me read this really quickly to you. Republican Ohio Representative Jim Jordan said an alarming number, 14 whistleblowers, quickly came forward with concerns about the Department of Justice's alleged political bias. Some of these good agents are coming to us, telling us what's going on, the political nature of how the political nature now of the Justice Department, he said. Now, he told that to Just the News. And he said on a completely separate set of whistleblowers that came forward before the raid are also alleging bias with the DOJ and FBI. I want you to think about this. How must these agents feel, these FBI agents feel, when they know for that over, I don't even know how many years. We know that the FBI has been doing like political dirty deeds now for decades, probably since its creation, but never this overtly, I don't think. Not the way that they're doing it here by targeting one particular person, and particularly a president of these United States of America, even after they were completely humiliated by the evidence that came out that Christopher Steele's dossier was totally fake, that they got a warrant to basically spy on President Trump using false information in a dossier that I believe and we know now, they knew was false when they did it, and that the DOJ's been in their pocket. The whole world knows this, guys. It's not just us. It's not just you and me. You might feel alone out there, but I was in Central America, and everybody, world leaders there, were talking about how banana republic we've become. You know, that's pretty crazy. When other nations and other world leaders, I've spoken to them, I've spoken to people as far away as Japan, are looking at what's happening in the United States, and they're afraid. They're like, what is going on here? What is happening to this nation? But it's nonstop. These people that are after Trump, this bureaucracy, these maniacs with Trump derangement syndrome can't even take a step back to do the right thing for America, because they really do not care about this nation. They do not care about this nation. They don't want you to talk about, election integrity. They want to make you look like you're a crazy lunatic. If you even bring it up, you must be ostracized. You'll be, taken off the air. You won't be able to upload your videos to YouTube, whatever. You won't be able to do anything if you say anything about election integrity. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And now you've got a bunch of FBI coming forward, whispering in the background. By the way, guys, there's got to be a point in time. And I've known a lot of whistleblowers in my career, a lot. And it's a very, very difficult job. It is a very difficult thing to literally come forward and give up your name and do the right thing and report in the way that's appropriate. I'm not talking Edward Snowden, giving all of our stuff to Russia. I'm talking about going to your lawmaker, filing a report with them, giving them testimony, eventually coming forward, and then just being cast aside and nothing being done. So I can kind of see why FBI agents, some who I've spoken with as well in the past, former and current, would be afraid of coming forward. But there's got to be a time, because we are really facing a very dangerous time in our nation, a time in our nation where I believe lawmakers and people within our government and the bureaucracy, this deep, deep state, is trying to usurp the power of the American people. Remember, this is not just about Donald Trump. This is about us. This is about our political system and our foundation. Let me finish reading this a little bit to you, and then I'm going to go straight to Congressman Mike Garcia, because I really want him to be able to talk about this as well. He's been on the show before. He's the one that basically went out and investigated and showed those illegal marijuana grows. If you haven't seen it, go to Fox News, look it up. Mike Garcia, Sarah Carter in Antelope Valley, where Russians and Chinese, it wasn't just Mexican drug cartels, were putting out these illegal marijuana grows, and then basically the money that they made off these illegal grows, after like stealing the water and the land and everything from American citizens, was being shipped overseas for war, to be used as paper, to be used as money, to be given to not just cartels but to terrorist organizations. I mean, this was really the most wild story I had worked on in a long time. And I was stunned that no one did anything. Mike Garcia did do something. But before we get to him, I just want to just lay it out for you. We've got these whistleblowers, right? We have a second group that asserted that the former assistant director of the FBI's counterterrorism division and executive assistant director of the National Security Branch, Jill Sanborn, pressured her subordinates to reclassify cases as domestic violent extremism. I want you to think about that, to provide statistical support to Biden administration's narrative that the issue presented the greatest threat to the United States. So here we have a president who basically, and if you guys didn't hear my last podcast with Peter Schweitzer, you should hear, who basically pocketed $31 million with his family that we know of the Chinese government, basically, because all the people that he was working with were connected in China to the Chinese Communist Party. So you want to talk about a real Manchurian candidate? That's someone that should be investigated. Here we have a complete cabal of people protecting a president that should be thoroughly investigated by our national security divisions. Not Donald Trump. He was already prodded and probed and investigated in every which direction. All of his friends have, it's been like a shakedown from the United States government, right? To get them, Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, I could go on and on, Paul Manafort, anybody around them, Donald Trump's children, every single person. But yet, isn't it weird that the bureaucracy is surrounding themselves around Biden and his family and protecting them? I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what is happening in our country. How dangerous this is when the DOJ and the FBI is weaponized for political purposes. Our battlefield, folks, and our war will be won at the ballot box. That I believe in. I still believe in this nation. I still believe in the turning over of power peacefully. And all of us have to do that together. And I also believe in exposing the corrupt. And if the New York Times and the Washington Post aren't going to do it, well, then guess what? It's going to be SaraACarter.com and Just the News with John Solomon and our podcast and my nonprofit as we go across the globe trying to find answers to all of this. It's going to be all of us working together to expose the truth, and the American people going to the courts and doing things the right way and really get off your couch. You are going to fight for this nation. And how are you going to do it? By ensuring the rule of law. And come this November, come midterms, we're going to vote these people out like Liz Cheney and others and all of these Democrats. And we're going to put the people in that are going to do the job for the American people. That's what we are going to do. And then come 2024, whoever that is, as long as it's not Biden, and as long as it's election integrity, we are going to vote a new president into this country. And we are going to get back on our feet again because we have to, because this is it. This is the greatest nation on earth. And every other nation is looking to our republic to lead the way. And without any further delay, I will bring Congressman Mike Garcia on shortly after I tell you about MyPillow. Now, MyPillow is awesome. I've got so much to say about Mike Lindell. I mean, he is a real patriot, isn't he? And now he's going to give you the best discounts you have ever seen. I'm telling you right now, you got to go to mypillow.com/Carter, or you got to call 1-800-685-7221 for deep discounts on the MyPillow Precale Bed Sheets. Queen size, listen to this, regular $89.98, now on sale for $39.98. And while you're there, you're not going to find any sheets cheaper than that. You're just not going to find it. And while you're there, take advantage of the buy one, get one free sale on all my pillows, towels, and so much more. Don't forget about the slippers and the doggy beds. My dog's sleeping underneath my desk right now on it, on the MyPillow doggy bed. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today for the sale of the year on MyPillow Precale Bed Sheets. mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. I am so excited to have you back on, Congressman Garcia, because it's been a while since we've spoken, and we did so much work together.
Yeah.
And I was bragging about you. I was bragging about your illegal grows in my monologue. I was bragging about all the work that you did to shut them down and to expose what was going on in California. And now you have given a speech that is remarkable in the Time for Choosing series at the Reagan Library, and one that I would certainly agree wholeheartedly with you on. Let's talk about that, how Americans have to start acting like their founding fathers.
Yeah, it was, first of all, just a tremendous honor and opportunity to be able to speak at the Reagan Library. And they have this Time for Choosing series where they invite a different speaker in each month. And usually it's, members of the cabinet, presidential cabinet, senators, former vice presidents, and they invited little old me. I happen to represent the library as well. It's in Simi Valley in my district. So just a tremendous honor. And I took the opportunity to talk about the fact that, we need to double down on a commitment to our country first. And that we do need to act like our founding fathers a little bit more. That's all of us, both sides of the aisles, the elected officials, the citizens, the constituents, the voters. And I end with this notion that it's pretty remarkable and special when you think about it. The fact that our founding fathers were willing to go fight a war for the United States before the United States even existed. They were willing to make the sacrifices and put their lives on the line for patriotism before there was a Star-Spangled Banner, before there was even, a national anthem. And they did all this with this sort of fundamental pursuit of what I call the four bedrock principles. And it's something that I don't think many Americans really understand. I think we all know that this country is great. Reagan referred to it as the shining city on the hill. I think we all see the Constitution as the backbone of our liberties and really the foundation of why our country is so good and so unprecedented. But there's also these underlying principles below the Constitution that I talk about, and so I think it's worth checking out. It is an hour long, but it's a good, very meaty speech. I write all my own stuff, and it's effectively talking about these four core principles: the fact that we're all equal under God with unalienable rights, the fact that government should be protecting its citizens, and that government should be working for the citizens, and ultimately the power is with the people, and that our elected officials should be protecting individual Americans and not putting them in harm's way, which is obviously a lot of what we're seeing under this administration. So, but it really defines where the Constitution came from, and a lot of the language that we saw in the Declaration of Independence. These weren't just created out of the blue; they're anchored to these what I call the four bedrock principles. So, definitely recommend folks check it out. It was one of those cool, kind of Forrest Gump moments where you're sitting there under the Air Force One and the Reagan Library and a couple hundred people, and just blessed to be able to be there, and frankly blessed to be in this job.
You really are. And frankly, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people out there listening right now know, but you're a highly decorated naval officer. I mean, you have flown F-18, you're an F-18 aviator. You have given so much to our nation. And I've never seen a point in our country in all of my years of work as where we are at right now, especially divided within our country, not just Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking the far left radicals versus the far right versus even within the GOP. And I'm sure you're seeing that divisions after divisions after divisions. And I'm very, very concerned about that, Congressman. I'm concerned about where the future of our nation is if we don't, as a nation, find a way to get back to those bedrock principles that you talked about.
That's right.
And I always say that our foundation is cracking. I mean, we're a republic. This is it.
That's right.
This is it. I was in Central America and people are looking towards our nation for leadership, and there really isn't any right now.
No, and it's it's sad to see our elected officials turn their back on our own country and act like we are the problem. It's actually shameful of them, especially this administration and its cabinet, its staff. They're trying to demonize the United States, which is clearly not the case. We're the good guys. But yeah, this idea of bifurcating the nation in any way we can, the media makes money off of that. Social media makes it so much easier to cancel people, and it's this us versus them mentality. And that's one of the themes of my speech, is that it's easy to divide. It's easy. There's a million ways we can divide small groups, large groups. The hard work comes in unifying. And we have to, as conservatives, be willing to talk to people who don't agree with us necessarily, so that we can educate them, so that we can shape their hearts and their minds and get them to understand the value of conservative values, so that we can actually increase security and prolong this nation rather than continue to jeopardize it. The very far left agenda that this administration is operating under is very dangerous, and I think the middle third is getting that now. But one of the quickest ways to turn someone off is by telling them you're a Democrat or by telling them you're a Republican. And you know me, I run on this idea. I don't give a crap what your party is. I care only that you're an American, and I would literally do anything for the country and for individual Americans' liberties and the freedoms that are guaranteed in the Constitution. But we have to stay aligned to the Constitution. We still have to stay, anchored by those bedrock principles. And when someone jeopardizes those or tries to manipulate them or marginalize the Constitution, we have to fight them. We have to fight like hell. And the other thing I would say is that someone who agrees with you 70% of the time is still an ally, right? And I think our party's guilty of this thing where just because you vote one way or just because you like one candidate instead of the other, our party tends to turn the guns inward rather than continue to fight the real external threats, and we try to cancel each other. So I think it's important that we realize that not every offense is a divorceable offense, and that there's a larger common good here, and that's the preservation of the nation.
Absolutely. And, we've seen that not only, within, like I would say, within Congress, but I think it's been so visible within all of our agencies and departments and divisions in the bureaucracy. And we're seeing that right now. Americans are very concerned that, the possibility that a lot of these departments that we entrust with our own security, right? And I'm a big believer in, law enforcement. I'm out on the border all the time. I went to Central America and did an investigation there last week because I really want to understand what's happening in our country and our national security. But we've got issues inside the country. We see, FBI raids and political divisions and the possibility that all of these agencies or others could be weaponized against political opponents. And I'm not just the one saying that, Congressman. I'm overseas, and I don't know if you're talking to people as well overseas, and I'm hearing the same thing from them. They're like, what in the world is going on in the United States?
Yeah, it's
are
unreal.
You guys falling apart? Yeah, they're asking these questions.
Yeah, and these are very real and valid questions, look, we have now seen with very concrete evidence this administration and the prior what we call deep state go after an administration and its allies in the form of the Trump administration, weaponizing these federal agencies to pursue them. And they don't do it in search of justice, right? They're not doing this to try to get a reckoning or to bring justice and have someone held accountable. They do it for political purposes. This is why you see the charges levied, the raids made, and in some cases no charges even brought forward, but then never substantiated, never followed through, and then never actually prosecuted. They don't need to actually do that. These are traits of tyranny. This is literally tyranny of a majority right now that is acting more like a Third Reich than they are the United States. And this is very dangerous. I think the average American is waking up to it. It was something that was hard to believe for most people, that there's no way our government would go after individual citizens or political figures for political purposes. That would never happen in our country. But when it happens over and over again and you see the hypocrisy, you start to realize that the far left has been unsuccessful in winning because they have the wrong policies. They have the wrong paradigms for a federal republic like ours. They've had to leverage the media, which is behaving like a fourth branch of government right now and is effectively dominated by the left. And they're realizing that even with that, they're losing, right? They're going to lose the majority in both chambers of Congress. They're going to lose White House in 2024 because of their incompetency. So if you pull all those levers, the only lever you really have left is to violate your power and abuse your power. And this is literally why the Constitution exists. There will be a reckoning against all of this. And when we get the majority back, we're going to be obviously looking into all of these and holding people accountable.
Absolutely, because that is vital to the survival of our nation, to our Constitution, to our Bill of Rights, right? And as citizens, I think we became very concerned. I remember like some of the first big mind-blowing things that happened, I think, on the citizenry level, right, was when, remember in Loudoun County, when parents were over there protesting CRT
right.
and, what they were teaching in the schools. And all of a sudden there was these memos that leaked that these parents were going to be classified as domestic terrorists. And, it was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
When did this happen?
Right.
I thought we were in charge of you guys. It's our tax dollars that are paying for your jobs, right, on the federal level. It's not you telling us what to do and babysitting us. It's us saying as Americans, as long as we're abiding by the Constitution and we're fulfilling our obligation as citizens, you work for us.
Right. Yep.
And so there's this confusion now as to who's in charge.
Yeah, and then obviously that plus the prosecution of churches during COVID, shutting them down, not allowing
right.
in California. We had churches getting fined because they were singing and they weren't allowed to sing, right, unless they had mask on or some other condition, which is a clear violation. I did an op-ed in Breitbart that outlined all of the clear-cut constitutional encroachments that we suffered under during COVID, and it's from from the First Amendment to the 14th Amendment, there were examples of where the government overreached. And again, it's this very far left agenda that's promoting this. They're promoting it not only within the CDC, they're promoting it within Homeland Security, obviously with our open borders. They're promoting it within our military with these woke policies. We now have a record low recruiting level across all branches of military, I think in 50 years because of this. And so, yeah, this is the far left. From the inside, these elitists, they're all part of this deep state that are literally trying to dismantle the country from within. And if anyone thinks that's conspiracy, if anyone thinks that's hyperbole, you don't have to search far or long. Omar has been talking about doing this. AOC has been talking about doing this. And Pelosi in this House, at least, has effectively adopted their agenda. And so watch the committee hearings, and you see the Dems every day. We're in committee in approps and science and technology, pushing this very far left policy that is actually contradictory to our American values. So it's real. We've got to keep fighting this fight, obviously, and this is why we need the majority back.
Well, let's just talk about the reality. I mean, I got back my investigation. I'm obviously continuing to investigate. I'm putting a podcast series together with my nonprofit along with Radio America on information warfare. And part of that is the border series. And right now on the border, I was just talking to a source of mine yesterday, who I met with. They were talking about how, Border Patrol right now through the Department of Homeland Security is trying to take down the fence lines that that the Texas Department of Public Safety has actually put up to stop the flow. But look, it goes beyond that because I'm in Central America. I spoke with the president of Guatemala. I spoke with leaders in El Salvador. I'm speaking to them and they're saying, well, wait a minute. Why is the Biden administration trying to put this on us?
Right.
If they're opening the border and they're saying we've reversed all of Trump's policies, so the whole world now, including our own nations, our people of our own nation, know and realize and see for a fact that the Biden administration is allowing people in, giving them our tax dollars, allowing people to move into housing, giving them food, giving them, carte blanche in the United States.
Yep.
I'm like, well, they got a point, right?
They're absolutely spot on. The root cause of all this, it's actually not very complicated. It's not just incompetence. You can actually peel the onion a little bit further and get to the root cause of this problem. It's that this administration didn't really have a platform when they came into office. They didn't have a real, America first or progress American, in pursuit of a more perfect union platforms or agenda items. The only thing they really ran on and the only thing they've really executed since being in office is literally to do the opposite of what the previous administration has done and to undo any executive orders that the previous administration has done. This is true across the board, and it comes at the expense of American security. We see it obviously not only at the border, but also in Afghanistan. We see it around the planet, basically, in the form of this president now recklessly undoing policies without any regard to the second or third order, implications of these policies. And even this bill last week that we voted on, this Inflation Reduction Act of 1.9, this one's only about 700 billion. This is going to obviously aggravate inflation and increase our nation's debt, which is one of our biggest threats.
Right.
But they're touting this insulin cap. But in the end, that's also something, President Trump had a cap on insulin of $35. And this was something that the Biden administration undid in the first couple of weeks it was in office. So it's very reckless. It's very dangerous. It's not actual policy. It's just political optics. And they're just doing things. And they're blaming this migration problem, as they call it, on our southern border, not on the fact that we haven't, honored our borders or secured our borders. They're blaming it on these Central and South American nations and climate change, of all things. My very far left progressive opponent is saying it's climate change that's forcing people to migrate north.
The weather is that's such a lie because the weather is so much better in Guatemala. I got to tell you, I told the president, if we could just clean up like the cartels on either side, and really start investing in the Western Hemisphere. Like, let's clean up the cartels. Let's get China out of Central America. Let's get the Russians out of Central America and South America. Let's start investing in our amazing partners that are, I don't even want to call that our backyard because that's insulting. They are our partners. They are our brothers and sisters in the Western Hemisphere. We could rival any other continent on planet Earth. We could rival them. We could have empires.
And
here.
by the way, we need them. Even if you go, 100% made America, we don't have the production capacity to support the demand here in the United States. We do need the partners in Central South America. And we need, in my opinion, we need to start spending less on our NATO partners in Europe. Hold them more accountable for the outcomes out there, and start investing in our own hemisphere. And also with Taiwan, we need to protect Taiwan. That is a significant strategic partner to the United States as well as Israel.
I think that that I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I wanted to say to you, because when you think about the border and you think about the chaos, and you made a very true statement here. I mean, how can we blame others for what we are mismanaging? But do you think, Congressman, this isn't just about mismanaging? This is about purposeful policy that literally is destroying our sovereignty and not only harming American citizens, but I feel, and I know a lot of people out there don't understand this, but I'm brokenhearted when I see the children and the women and the people that are being lied to, and they're being trafficked by these horrific, horrible people that are abusing them and raping them, and some of these children are dying. So it is far worse than what most Americans even know. And I will be putting that out in a story and a series of reports on my podcast. It's far worse than what most of you even know. I won't even go into it now because it's so horrible what happens to some of these children. You can't imagine.
Well, that's why.
So why are they doing this?
That's why it's so invaluable. I'll get to the why here shortly, I think. But I think that's why it's so important that you do this. You put a bright light on some of these social problems that we have and national security problems that we have, and you put the human element in it. I've gone to the border a couple times myself and have seen it. As a grown man, I remember walking out of one of these detention facilities crying because there's a 6-year-old little girl there, and she's got her little brother who's like 2 years old. They came across the border effectively by themselves. They were handed off and walked a couple miles before agents were able to pick them up. And the 6-year-old was basically the custodian guardian of this 2-year-old boy. And it's the most heartbreaking thing. I walk out crying, thinking of my kids being in those squalid conditions. This is one of the worst humanitarian disasters, and it's being promoted by this White House. No, Kamala, I don't know what she is anymore. I don't really care. She was supposed to be the czar of the border, right? She doesn't need to go to the border to figure out what the problem is. She just needs to go to the Oval Office and figure out what the problem is.
What do we need to do? What should be done? Because we've just said, this is a humanitarian crisis at the border. It's also a national security crisis.
Right.
But when you have an administration that, and also when you have Congress and the Senate, controlled by these Dems, it feels like they're not doing anything to protect not only the people who are crossing, but the American people. What can we do?
Yeah, so step one is to get the majority back in the legislative body, obviously the House of Representatives as well as the Senate. We can, from an appropriations perspective, prohibit the federal government from spending money if it goes towards, say, the facilitation of moving undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants across the country, right? So it basically would then freeze all the funds for Border Patrol if any other funding is being used to move these folks like we currently are. We're using taxpayer money right now to put these folks on airplanes and then shotgun them around the entire nation, all 50 states. So that's one thing we can do, but we have to get the majorities back in both chambers. In the end, we need to secure the border. We need to stop incentivizing people to come here. We need to be loud and clear to the rest of the world that we're no longer giving away free stuff and that this border problem is now behind us. It's secure. And that takes the executive branch to have the courage to do that. So we do need to get the White House back before any of that changes. And in the end, we've got to actually start investing in our Border Patrol agents. These folks have been run into the ground. You see them firsthand. They're having to, basically serve as babysitters and escorts rather than Border Patrol agents. And we need to be hiring them, not IRS. They just hired 87,000 new IRS agents when they should have been hiring, maybe a third of that for the Border Patrol to help us get through this problem and actually end this nightmare. The answers are clear. This isn't black magic, or this isn't a difficult thing to solve. We just need to do it, and we need an executive branch to actually act on it and fix this problem instead of kowtowing to this very far left agenda that he ran on.
Right. And you brought up a really important point. I'm going to go straight into Afghanistan in a moment, but you talk about the 87,000 IRS agents, or almost 87,000 IRS agents. We see what's happening with the FBI. Now we have FBI whistleblowers. I talked about that in the monologue, coming forward, upset and angry about how their agency and the Bureau is being used. It almost feels like we're becoming a police state. I mean, if you got 87,000 people armed. Yeah, I mean, that is not what our founding fathers intended for our nation.
Right. The government now doesn't trust its citizens, which is backwards. The citizens should not trust their government. That's what our country was founded on. The Constitution protects and reflects the will of the majority, but it still protects the minority. It still protects the individual citizen. And what this administration is doing right now, and these very far left activists are trying to flip that over so that it is tyranny of the majority, and it doesn't matter if you're an individual citizen with constitutional rights. As long as you're in the minority, you can be canceled out, you can be prosecuted, you can be charged, you can be publicly shamed. They do that to every elected conservative out there who's fighting this good fight, and we've got to fight back. We've got to stop playing by the Queen's rules and start playing MMA and be willing to run for offices where maybe we don't always win, but we are an opposition force, and we can do the right things for the nation. And so this is the fight that we're taking right now.
Right, and it's one that I'm going to talk to you much more about as come November. You and I hope you come back on the show. I want to get into Afghanistan right now, because I don't want to let you go. And I know I could talk to you forever about the fundamentals of our nation and our principles, but we watched our principles completely run asunder by this Biden administration and their actions in Afghanistan. We saw the rest of the world, especially our adversaries, take advantage of that. It's almost been, a year since the tragic death of the 13 Marine service members there at Abbey Gate, Karzai Airport in Kabul. I want to play this clip for you. It's an interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. President Biden at the time claimed that we would stay until we got all American citizens out. You and I both know that was a complete lie, but I want people to listen to this.
Americans should understand that troops might have to be there beyond August 31st.
No, Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And
if there are American forces, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
Is that true?
Well, clearly not. Clearly a lie. There's still, to this date, over 100 Americans still there. There's close to 1,000 SIV partners still there that are, trying to get out. Look, this thing was doomed to fail when he first started talking about this plan. As early as April 14th of 2021, he said basically, hey, we are going to unconditionally withdraw by 9/11, which was then, going to be the 20th anniversary of the horrific attacks on American soil. And he sealed our fate with that. You don't tell anyone, you don't tell the world, you don't tell our threats that we're going to unconditionally withdraw. If you want to pull out in a planned manner on your own timeline without any sort of obligations to the globe of getting out, which is what he did. He painted us into a corner on day one. And then it was a slow moving train wreck from there on out. Everything that he did, from that point on was doomed to fail. And we saw slowly between April and August, the Taliban take over every province in Afghanistan. And then when August came, it was already too late. It was already, we were already basically, our fate was sealed. And we were at this point in August, we were already as a team, you as well as several other members of Congress, working to help get Americans out, to help get Afghan SIV partners out. We were participating in what was called the digital Dunkirk and real time moving folks around on the ground to get to the right checkpoints, to avoid certain checkpoints and avoid certain threat areas. And we did more with our little group of folks. And I know our office was directly involved with getting 115 Americans and Afghan partners out. I know Mike Waltz, Tom Cotton, a few others were actively involved, a couple Dems, I think Jason Crow's office, Jared Golden as well was involved in this. And you were a part of this network. But we did more as a small group of folks helping people move around with the special operators on the ground in Afghanistan than our entire government, State Department did. And in fact, when we tried to work with the State Department is when we actually were unsuccessful in getting people to the right areas, or their information was compromised and they were stopped. And so, look, it's been a year. It feels like it feels like it's still going on, because it is. It happened yesterday, effectively. We're still suffering from this travesty. But many Americans have forgotten, and we have three key strategic failures. One, I talked about Biden unconditionally announcing a withdrawal on 9/11. That was just stupidity at the highest levels. The second major mistake came on July 2nd of 2021 from a strategic mistake perspective. The decision to pull out of Bagram Airfield, where we had about 5,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda prisoners there that were ultimately released, where we abandoned about $7 billion worth of military equipment. And then the third major mistake, which was manifested really at the end of July and throughout August, was that this president never realized that this shifted from becoming a withdrawal or a diplomatic mission into effectively a military operation, where we were actually fighting on the ground with Taliban, where we were actually having Americans and civilians being threatened by the Taliban. And there was a war breaking out around us. But this president wanted to continue to listen to Secretary of State Blinken, who wanted to treat this like a diplomatic mission rather than a DOD operation. They should have handed operational control off to the DOD. Austin doesn't have the courage or the fortitude or the background to speak up and say, hey, boss, you're screwing this up. Blinken wanted to keep going because he thought he was going to be successful and put a cape on. And in the end, they all screwed up. 13 American personnel men, 11 Marines, 1 Army soldier, and a Navy corpsman were killed because of this incompetence. And it pisses us off. It pisses Americans off. We can't forget it. And this is, the commander in chief. And if you believe in those 4 core principles that I talked about, that elected officials should be protecting individuals from harm, not putting them in harm's way, and you have the commander in chief cost the lives of 13 American service members, it is the worst of offenses. And we can't forget that. This is, of all the crises we have in our country, this is still the biggest mistake this administration has made. And we need to hold them accountable. And we will. There will be a reckoning for this, but we've got to reinstill warfighter principles back into our military and get a commander in chief that understands what the military is for.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, look, you talk about what happened in Afghanistan, and with Bagram Airfield alone, the Chinese now have control of Bagram Airfield. So in effect, the Taliban, yes, but our greatest adversary right now, which is China, has control of Bagram Airfield. It's complete and utter insanity. And you and I talked about this. All of the people that were at Abbey Gate that day, all of our service members, of course, God, my heart breaks for the families, young men, women, people that were right there serving their country, trusting our government to do the right thing for them. And then all of the people that were American citizens in that line at Abbey Gate, that were maybe SIVs, that were working to try to get people through the line, they all lost their lives too.
Yeah,
they all lost their lives.
Close to 200 people were killed in that one explosion that was completely, first of all, it sounds like there was information that they had that they saw this was coming, and they were still unable to prevent it. But the whole situation was preventable in the end. And, the blood is on the hands of the administration. And this is this is what the first domino looks like when you fail on at that level on the global stage. And then you do see things like, the attempted annexation of Ukraine by Putin. You do see China start to flare up and potentially start talking about taking Taiwan. And so this is why you don't screw up at the levels that you do, and why we need an administration that actually understands national security policy. And this Bagram thing wasn't unprecedented, right? After World War II, we had a presence in Japan, we had a presence in Germany that we still retain today. After Korea, we had a presence in South Korea that we still retain today. After Vietnam, a strong presence in Southeast Asia. After the first Iraq War, we have a strong presence in Bahrain, UAE, as well as in Kuwait. These are stabilizing effects. These are after major conflicts. If you can leave a footprint and have a strategic military stronghold in these theaters for decades to come, you help rebuild them, you help stabilize the region. So us staying at Bagram would have been actually a stabilizing thing for the region. And now, not only have we destabilized it, but like you said, we've given it up to China. And the amount of natural resources there beyond just the stability of the region is unprecedented. And we're going to be beholden to China because of this.
Right. And we gave basically Afghanistan to the Taliban. We had a president and a State Department that literally turned over our security before we withdrew to the enemy. That was it. They
Unreal.
turned it over to the enemy. And I want to give you a chance because you're running.
And he told them months in advance that he was going to do it unconditionally by 9/11, and then he accelerated to August 31st. Just shameful. Just supreme stupidity.
Yeah, it is. It is supreme stupidity, but it's also a stupidity that led to the deaths of people, led to a geopolitical shift in our world and a climate that we have not seen since, I would say, since pre-World War II. I believe that we're seeing like the rise of our adversaries. It used to be we were fighting this invisible insurgency, right? We had to watch for the enemy. Everything was focused on terrorism. Now we're like, oh wait, holy crap, I'll use that word. We still have adversaries out there that are massive nations, that are nuclear nations, that are targeting us, and they may have the advantage on us now, all right, because of these idiotic policies and people who are not foreseeing the possibility that the United States doesn't just exist because we want it to exist. It exists right because of men and women like you who've laid their lives on the line, who have gone overseas to fight these battles, to keep our nation safe and to protect us. And you have an election coming up. You're in a state that is like, holy smokes, I give you all the credit because I love California. I love California, guys. Where Antelope Valley, that whole area is just beautiful. I do not love the politics of California. And it's very sad. I was born in California, but it makes me very sad to see how this state, is so many people are leaving. They're coming here to Texas, where I'm at. Yeah. They're going to Florida, because of what's happening in California.
Yeah, and the unfortunate reality is, and first of all, this is why I'm running, right? I'm not running again, and I'm not serving in this capacity to try to save California. I'm trying to prevent the country from turning into what California has become. That is literally the mission that I'm on right now. And there's this unfortunate reality that when people do things to California, they do it in the, whether they leave or they, adopt policies to try to screw California. The reality is California screws the rest of the country. And so we do have to pay attention to what's going on in California. As this state is broken because of the zombies in Sacramento coming up and basically doing to our state what Biden is doing to our nation, but they've been doing it for 15, 20 years. Folks are leaving, but when they leave to Texas and Florida, they take some of these policies with them as well. And so this does affect the entire country. And I'm trying to hold a seat that, Biden won by 12%. This is a very tough district. I won by, just a few hundred votes. I have no doubt that we're going to win again, but I do need all the support that we can get. We need all the financial support and volunteers out here on the ground. This is like Little Round Top at Gettysburg. I've got the dark blue seats to the south of me, and I've got McCarthy to the north of me. And if we can't turn this tide around in California, then it's coming to a state near you, and we do have to pay attention to these swing seats.
Oh, absolutely. You said it perfectly. It's like you are being surrounded and, it's like it's like battlefield preparation, right? Preparation on the battlefield. Is there any advice out there? I always tell people, look, every time I end my podcast, I say this is about you and I, not just winning battles, but winning the war, right?
That's
and it's
right.
getting out there and voting and believing in what our founding fathers, elections that are peaceful. We turn over to the new person that's elected, but we can't complain if we don't get out there and vote.
Yeah. And
Every
that's the
single
problem.
person.
Yeah, and I ask people right away if they come to me and what are we asking, hey, what are we doing about this and that? I ask them, did you vote? Because the sad reality is that in California, at least in this last primary, only 32% of the Republicans in my district voted. And I don't know what else you need to be inspired to go out and vote. I had a World War II veteran that I met with about 3 or 4 days ago, almost in tears because he was so concerned about our country. 102 years old, served in World War II, and he just said, I'm very nervous about the country, Mike. I appreciate everything you're doing. You're doing everything right, but we need more of you. And I said, look, God and the Constitution are on our side, and we're going to fight like hell to make sure that everyone understands that. Every single voter needs to understand that we are right and that we do need to save this country, and it is in perilous waters right now. But don't lose hope, and don't discredit any sacrifices that you've made, sir. And this greatest generation is unfortunately passing away in the midst of probably one of the worst times in our nation's history as far as certainty as to our nation's security. And so it's heartbreaking for them to watch, but we will prevail. Ultimately, we have all the right tools. We have good candidates running. The right people are paying attention. But God and the Constitution aren't enough. The way our Constitution is set up is we need the individual people. We, the people, need to actually show up and vote. And when they do, we'll be successful and we'll fix this country.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. And where can our listeners go if they want, out there in your district, where can they go if they want to support you?
Yeah, you can visit our website, electmikegarcia.com. You can sign up to volunteer there, and you can also donate there. There's a donate tab. Pelosi's going to spend about $20 to $25 million again. She did this in 2020 and twice with the special election in November. And with all of that investment, about $30 million back then, she still lost. So the goal is to not only keep the seat, but to continue to take the wind out of Pelosi's sails, get the majority back. So please help us out, electmikegarcia.com, and we appreciate all the support.
Hey, remember that, everyone. It isn't just about California. This is about every single state and those policies sweeping across the nation. So I hope I bring you back. I'm going to bring you back before the election in November. Let's talk about the issues that are important, because I agree with you. Those issues that are happening in California are important to all of us. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being on the show. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Okay, so you all heard what Congressman Mike Garcia had to say, and we were talking about the border. We were talking about the national security implications of having a wide open border and the humanitarian crisis. Well, get this. This is a clip that my colleague, Bill Malusian, had videoed while he's down on the border. And this literally shows Border Patrol agents opening a gate, like opening the gate. As you can see, they're opening the gate that Texas DPS. So Texas DPS had it closed, right? You've got, and I know this area very well. I'm there quite often. So Texas DPS, this is on private property. I want you to know this. This property is a farmer and a rancher that does not want all of these people crossing across their land. There they go. Texas, there it is, walking right in. You guys got to see this on YouTube. They just let everybody walk right in. And I want to tell you, on this private property, which also buttresses federal land, it is just filthy. You can't even imagine how the environment, you talk about the left's always telling us that we have to go buy like these $65,000, cars that, that are supposed to be environmentally sound. Well, they don't give a crap, literally, about the border, because the Rio Grande is just overrun by trash, by plastics, clothing. Just, you can't even imagine. Animals are dying because of this. There's also, there's no place to throw the trash. I want to start some kind of group to help clean the Rio. And maybe we can just take the people that are crossing in here illegally and say, hey, before you guys come in, we're going to do, 10 miles of cleanup. Maybe that. Maybe somebody can do something. Obviously, the left doesn't care. And you know how those Border Patrol agents probably feel? They're probably being mandated to open those gates that Texas Department of Public Safety has been told by Governor Greg Abbott to keep shut. We got to figure out what we want here as Americans. Guys, just like Congressman Garcia said, listen to how many people went out and actually voted that were Republican, like 35% in his district. That's an embarrassment. Our men and women have gone all over the world fighting for this nation, fighting for the principles that our nation stand on, with the possibility that they will never return home to their families, putting everything on the line for our country. The least we can do is let's do something incredible this November. Let's do something incredible in 2024. Let's all get out there and vote. Just get out there and vote. You can't cheat if everybody's voting. You can't do it. It's going to be too obvious. Let's just get out there and do what is right. Let's get off our couches. Let's DVR our favorite shows or whatever we do. Let's not be lazy about this. Let's get out there. Let's register and let's vote. God bless you. God bless our great nation, because I too believe that it will continue to exist. And God bless the great state of Texas. Thank you all for joining me today. Remember, go to sarahacarter.com. That's sarahacarter.com, where you get all the links to all of my social media, and you'll get on my email list. I love you all, and thank you for all the reviews.